Hi students, this is Unit 2, kind of an introduction to the nervous system and the central nervous system. In Lesson 1, we'll be discussing the major divisions and subdivisions of the nervous system, the neuron in particular, and its basic processes of neural transmissions, and the functions of various parts of the central nervous system. When we talk about the central nervous system, we're talking about the brain and the spinal cord, which you see here. So the nervous system is that system that regulates the body's response to internal and external stimuli. So let me kind of tell you what the internal versus the external is. So the internal, of course, is what's going on in our body, and then the external are things that are outside in the environment. So it has to do with our sensory experiences, sensation and perception. Our brains and our spinal cord. One thing that's unique about a human being is we can say that the brain, when we are born, has to yet be developed, because these external stimuli mean absolutely nothing to us until we experience them and then label them. And that's what the neuron functions to do. However, we first have to start with the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, the differences between those two systems, and how we process that information. We do it by using neurons and neural networks. So a neuron is the nerve cell that provide communication throughout our bodies. Components of a neuron look a lot like what is pictured here. So neurons communicate with one another by producing energy and an electrical impulse. They have the dendrites, which receive information, receive impulses, and conducts them through the cell body. I always think dendrite has an R, so it receives. That's how I remember it. An axon is away. Axon carries the messages away from the cell body. So you also see here pictured the myelin sheath, and the myelin sheath protects the axon and the messages, and insulates, protects those messages. The central nervous system communicates through axon terminals, which is the sending axon, the transmitter, and neurotransmitters move from axon terminal to the next neuron. You see the message being communicated across a synapse. That is a gap between two neurons. This communication process takes place between the synapse, and what is being transmitted per neurons are neurotransmitters. These are chemical messengers that carry impulses across the synaptic gap to other neurons. So we will be seeing more about this in following slides, but also we'll read more about neurotransmitters in particular in class. The communication process then is dendrites, which receive information, and then they get sent through the axons to new neural networks. Here it is in action. So you can see the axon sending the message, the neurotransmitters being pushed out of the synapse, which is called the action potential. Here, the yellow is traveling down the axon to a new neural network. The process of getting the action potential and the neurotransmitter then to another neural network, there it's being sent across the synapse, and once that receiving neuron gets enough of its information, the sending neuron takes back the neurotransmitter that doesn't get used in a process known as reuptake. So the sending neuron reabsorbs the excess neurotransmitter from the synapse. Here you can see it in action. So when the neuron that is sending the action potential, the neurotransmitter, sends it out, the dendrite, the receiving neuron, receives enough of the chemical messenger. It is then reuptaked, taken back up by the sending neuron. Another analogy for this process is known as like flushing a toilet. When you flush a toilet, the action potential gets flushed down the toilet. So then the process begins again. Here we see neural networks being formed. You can see dendrites reaching out to receive chemical messengers. And this is a process that happens throughout our lifetimes. So when we're a wee baby, these neural networks are not very developed. I mean, they're kind of blank. We are blank slates, and we have to create those neural networks by learning to crawl, learning to walk, by kicking a ball. This is why you can't like become a master at running when you're 6 months old, because your neurons don't know how to do that yet. All right, but let's keep it basic. The system that regulates the body's responses to internal and external stimuli, the nervous system, consists of two parts. That is the central nervous system, which is made up of our brain and spinal cord, and then the peripheral nervous system, which then sends information out to the rest of our body. You have two parts to your peripheral nervous system, which includes somatic and autonomic. And somatic transmits senses. Autonomic is more well, I think of it as automatic. We don't have to think about our autonomic nervous system functioning. So this includes vital functions like heartbeat, breathing, digestion, and blood pressure. Your autonomic nervous system is what gets you keyed up for battle, for that game. It is what keeps you energized to fight off the fight, flight, or flee, if you've ever heard of fight or flight. We'll continue to learn more about this process as we go through this unit. For now, remember that the nervous system consists of your central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which includes somatic and autonomic nervous system. The parts of the neuron include the dendrite, which receives information, the axon, which sends it away, and then the axon terminal is where the neurotransmitters get sent across the synapse. That's a basic overview of what is to come.